Hey, this is Warren Redlick. I'm here with Larry Goldberg. We're both big Tesla fans. I believe that Tesla is the next Tesla. The stock is going to rise when you're looking for a company to invest in. You can buy the Tesla's the next Tesla t-shirt, elonbits.com. If you're looking for a company that's going to go up like Tesla went up in 2020, the best odds for a company to go up like that is the Tesla. That's the best stock to invest in. It's my opinion. I think Larry shares my opinion, and yet I think we have different opinions about Tesla bot, which is one of the reasons I think this is going to happen. Larry, you posted recently, you had this really good thread about your thoughts for the future of Tesla bot. Before
Yeah,
we dive into that, would you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
I'm probably one of the more senior people in the Tesla community, not from the point of view of Tesla knowledge or Tesla experience, but just age. I'm 77 years of age. Today I'm celebrating my 55th wedding anniversary. I'm retired. I retired the end of last year from my last company. I've started in my career about 8 companies. Some have been very successful, some are not so successful. I'm an entrepreneur by spirit, and I really love starting stuff. I love evolving stuff. I like building things, and when things become mature, I like moving on. So that's my background. I started investing in Tesla some many years ago. I bought my first Tesla in 2017, Model 3. And since I've had two Model 3s, and I drive an X right now. And I've been confirmed. My order for the Cybertruck has been confirmed. I'm hoping to get it in the first quarter of next year. That's what I've been told. I better get it in the first quarter next year because I'm going to Europe in April and I'm going to be away for 3 months. God knows what'll happen if they deliver it while I'm away. Anyway, that's my story. I've been an investor in Tesla for a long time, and I am a very committed Tesla investor. I've invested in a lot of Elon's activities. I've invested in SpaceX. I've invested in Neuralink. I've invested in Twitter. Um, Now X. I'm a very strong proponent of X. I think it's going to be possibly one of Elon's best companies. Very excited about XAI. Very excited about everything Tesla's doing. So couldn't find a more bullish guy than me.
I've got to
Excuse
agree
me.
with that. So, your post about Tesla bot, I think you were critical of people who think Tesla bot's going to be meaningfully impactful in the next few years.
I'm not critical of them.
Okay. I think you disagree with them.
I disagree with them. That's very different. They may be right. I don't hand out the facts of, I mean, I just have opinions. And my opinion is that the Tesla bot, they are making amazing evolutions of the hardware. I mean, we've seen a huge improvement in the hardware almost, every 6 months. It's like a huge leap. And, I follow a lot of people who know a lot more about the Tesla hardware than I do. I'm a software guy, been that all my life. I have patents and books, and I've accolade. People know that I know software, and I know that I know software. And I'm very familiar with AI. I think, just as with FSD, I think real world AI on which the bot depends is still somewhat in the future. I think we have a way to go. I think it's going to take Tesla a while, not a long while, but a while, to be able to learn to train the bot and to learn how to train the bot and to get the bot trained. And I believe that they will not produce in scale until they've solved some of those problems. Not all of the problems, but certainly sufficient to make that bot useful and profitable in the enterprise, in manufacturing. So, I think Elon himself has said 2005 as his target, and I believe in that target. I think 2004,
2025?
25, sorry. I'm living in the past. 2025 is the target he set. I believe in that target. Sometimes he's a little bit over his skis. Not often, but sometimes. Um, and so I have to think that it will be a while before we get there. And here's the problem. This is the thesis of my piece. Training a bot using AI is a very, very challenging project. If you think FSD is challenging, then real-world AI, with all the freedom of movement that you have in a bot with hands, fingers, torso, legs, in an industrial environment where safety is paramount, where millimeters count, even inches count, in the least critical areas. I think that getting that training dialed in, getting that AI dialed in is very challenging, and we're not there yet. Tesla's not there yet. We saw in the latest video, which is amazing video, actually, I was blown away, picking up the egg and moving the egg and that was not picking up, actually handing the egg from one hand to the other. That was an amazing, amazing video. But that there was very significant amount of work involved in training it to do that. So what I'm saying is that, I'm seeing all the stuff being written about next year, we're going to have 200 bots, 300, 5,000 bots, and you, Warren, dear friend, you're talking about having a bot walk around with you in the supermarket and go and get the carrots that is 5 years away, if we're lucky. So all I'm saying is that let's not overreach on the subject. Let's be a little bit more measured. I am a firm believer that the Tesla stock is going to outperform any stock on the market by a significant amount. I happen to disagree with you that, Dojo is going to be worth, all of NVIDIA for various reasons, which I'm very happy to discuss. It's not. Dojo is going to be very valuable, but not worth more than NVIDIA. But I think that we have to have a little bit of patience, a little bit of fortitude, and we'll get there.
I want to push back on one little detail with you.
Sure.
There's a lot I want to push back on, but there's one.
By the way, Warren, I don't claim to be I don't claim to know it all. This is just opinions.
So the issue that I see is when you want to learn to train AI, more data is better. More data, more compute. So I'm not suggesting necessarily that Tesla will start selling bots this year or next year. But if you want to train bots to do something, one of the ways that you do that is you create a lot of bots. You build, let's say, 10,000 bots, just to give you a number, and you have those bots. You don't just give the instruction to one bot. You give it to 10,000. You generate a lot of data, and you use that data to train how the bots can do better. If you're only training on one bot, you're not generating enough data.
Yeah, I think this is really, it goes to the heart of what I was saying in my piece. if you're training people, if you're training a bot to drive, if you're training a car to drive, the car is custom designed to do one thing and one thing only, and that's to turn four wheels on a road within the tapestry of driving on roads, which is extremely well understood problem. And so the more you duplicate that factor, the better. With bots, it's extremely different. You don't have four tires. You have 10 fingers, 4 limbs, a head, a torso, many, many, many degrees of freedom. I mean, 20 times the number of degrees of freedom of a car. So you're not going to learn by turning 10,000 bots loose. You're going to be learning by turning a couple of dozen bots for a specific task in a specific use case, because that use case is so different from every other use case. In a car, every use case is the same. Stop street, a road, 2-lane, 1-lane, 3-lane, 4-lane, a divider, not divider, a ramp, a freeway. It's extremely contained. With a bot, every single bot could be tackling a completely different use case. You talked about edge cases in your piece. There isn't a standard case and then some edge cases. Every case is an edge case. So you're best building the vocabulary of use of hands, eyes, limbs, torso, lift, whatever. You build as many use cases as you can, and that begins to generalize the AI. That begins to build a vocabulary. It begins to build a glossary. It begins to build a set of actions and touches and feels and materials that you can then begin to generalize.
Let me give you an example of how I think Tesla could use a large number of bots, and a use case that I think is more constrained, but generates a lot of valuable data. So a lot of what we see as exciting about bot is its ability to manipulate objects. But one of bot's biggest, and that is a huge challenge, but one of bot's biggest challenges is navigating the world, right? And like you described, cars are navigating the world in this domain.
Very constrained domain.
Right. And I think Tesla could build 10,000 bots and operate them in a constrained domain. And let me give you the specific example.
What's that by?
Let me explain a little bit. There's a specific use case that I think bot may have commercial value very quickly, because it does not require manipulating objects. It just requires navigating space. Imagine you have a facility like, let's say, a large factory, and you want security around the perimeter. And maybe you have a few guards, let's say 5 or 10 guards who are walking the perimeter. And what is the guard's job to do? Walk around, look, see if you see anything unusual, notify the central security, hey, I see something.
This is a very well-known use case. Bot dogs do it right now. It's known, it's done.
But walking, I don't know if you've been to the Tesla Gigafactory or walked around the outside.
Yeah, I've been to both.
The terrain is challenging. The terrain around Giga Texas is challenging. So having the bot learn to walk around a place like Giga Texas or a place like Tesla Fremont, right? Basically any of Tesla's factories are in different domains. So learning to walk around the perimeter of a facility.
Yeah, for 20 or 30 bots, that may be a use case. That's not going to advance what is the principal mission, but it's a use case.
Well, you could have 100 bots walking around Giga Texas. There's plenty of room.
What are you buying? What are you buying?
You're learning to walk in that terrain, and you're
10 bots could do it as well as 100.
Sorry?
10 bots can do that job as well as 100. The problem is the manipulating of complex devices, managing industrial processes, walking around. Robot dogs do that today. That's not buying anything. So simply having a bot being able to walk and not stumble and do that, that's nice and that's useful. And 5 bots can do it as well as 10. You're not buying that. This is not like FSD where you want to build up the miles. Because the problem needs to address the complexities, the complex problems with the hand movements and the body movements and adjusting with really accuracy industrial processes.
Okay.
That's the project.
But so there's two different things going on. Okay. You're describing having the bot learn to do tasks, and I'm describing having the bot learn to understand the real world that it's walking around in.
You're buying nothing.
Well, no, because the robot dogs you're talking about aren't powered by AI. They're walking around terrain programmed with with heuristic programming, not with AI. So having bots learn to walk in a variety of terrains, and not just walk in a variety of terrains, but also observing the environment around them. And one of the jobs of walking the perimeter is noticing something that deserves to be reported back to the central office.
Quite useful, but hardly mission critical and hardly, I don't think it adds dramatic amounts to the mission.
Okay, so wait, what is the mission?
The mission is for the bots in the first place to become really useful in industrial production.
Okay,
I believe.
So I'm going to disagree with you again. The mission is to develop real world AI and develop a general purpose bot.
Look,
it is an application to use it in a factory, but the real mission is to develop a general purpose bot.
Yeah, but to develop a general purpose bot using walking the perimeter is a very long pole in a very tall tent. I mean, you're not going to achieve a great deal if your bot becomes really good at walking open spaces.
Okay, so again, not just walking open spaces, which is one thing, but understanding the world around it. So it's walking the perimeter and it sees something that is moving towards the factory from outside the perimeter. And it identifies that object. What does FSD do in the car? It identifies objects. It assigns probabilities to what that object is going to do, where it's going to go, whether it's a stop sign, what is that object and what do I need to do about it? And that is a critical element of understanding the real world that bot needs.
And that's a long, long pole in a very tall tent. That's going to add to the mission, no doubt. But it's how soon is such a bot? Because really what you're teaching it is not much. You're teaching it the outer edge of the real mission. And the real mission is interacting in spaces that is added value. In the car, you're adding value all the time because you're moving on a road. That road, as long as there's traffic and as long as there's signs and as long as there are turns and so on, that's adding significantly to the value. What you're talking about, it's not an edge case, it's a primary case, but it's not going to learn much. The amount it's adding value to its learning, it's going to take a long. That's kind of a real slow. The real value is to teach it what we can heuristically program very quickly, which is taking stock out of shelves, putting stock back into shelves, packing into boxes. We've got that heuristically covered very well with vision and with code. We need to get beyond that. That's the added value. When you say you learn about the real world because you see people moving and so on and so forth, I'm not sure that adds a huge amount of value. And, it certainly adds value, but it's not going to advance the mission very far.
Well, the point I'm getting at is one of the fundamental things that a bot needs to do is it needs to understand the space that it's in, be able to move around the space that it's in, and
Yeah.
identify objects and predict what their behavior is going to be, eventually interact with objects, but I'm not suggesting that yet. And the key point here is you need a lot of bots to train that behavior. You can't train that behavior with one bot. And it doesn't interfere with what you're describing. If you want to have 10 bots that are you're training on tasks, that's not a reason not to have 10,000 bots walking in the real world.
All right, so I'm buying what you're selling. How is that advancing the idea of having, 500 bots by next year?
Oh, I could see Tesla having 10,000 bots by now. Well, and by the way, I don't have a timeline, but the question is, at some point, is Tesla going to make a manufacturing line and start manufacturing bots? Elon is not a bit like, if you even look at Neuralink, you said you've invested in Neuralink. They made like 10 surgical robots already. They have plans for clinics. They're looking ahead to the future. They're constantly iterating, but they didn't just make one surgical robot. They made 10 because there was a
So
video.
what are those robots doing?
I assume that they're testing what they're doing. And the point is that to train for the tasks that you're describing, that might be something where you train in a different way. But to train for understanding the real world, what we've learned from FSD is you need literally millions of cars generating huge amounts of data that gets relayed back to the center for training by AI training supercomputers. And the cars are driving in a very limited, constrained environment. The bots have to walk in a wide variety of environments, whether it's walking upstairs or walking in forests or walking on dirt. There's
Yeah,
so many different environments that the bots need to learn to walk in. And the way
I
you train for that is you have large numbers of bots generating large
think
amounts of data.
I think we have to get way past walking. And the big difference is the car moving on four wheels is not equivalent to the bot walking on two legs. We have to get the bot engaged in tasks with hands because that's the value add.
Yeah, but that
You
doesn't,
get the bot,
these two goals don't conflict. You can have your 10 bots training to do tasks, and I can have my 10,000 bots walking around in the world. How does my 10,000 bots walking around in the world detract
because all
yours?
all they're learning to do is walk around the world, and that's not advancing the mission.
But if they can't walk around in the world, at some point you want the bot to go do a task that's not inside a factory. You might want
Yeah.
the bot to take a bag of trash from the work inside a Burger King and take a bag of trash and take it out to the dumpster. That's
So
walking.
taking the bag of trash and walking to the dumpster is a very important task.
Yeah.
But it's not being advanced by having 10,000 bots walking around,
No,
in my judgment.
this is the whole point. Learning to navigate the entire world, putting it in a variety of circumstances, finding when it fails, relaying that back and retraining how to walk around the world and how to understand the world around it is exactly what we've been doing with FSD. That's the path that they understand really well. The path of training it to do tasks is very different, and we don't really know yet. I mean, I agree with you 100% that one of the important things to do, and a very important thing to do, is to train the bot to do tasks. But the larger goal is to train the bot to be a general purpose bot where you can tell it to do something it's never been trained to do, and it figures out how to do it because it's done something like that before. If you're just training a bot to do simple tasks repeatedly,
couldn't agree with you more.
So you have to expose it to a variety of environments and a variety of tasks. And at some point, it's probably like the FSD5 inference chip, or maybe it's the FSD6 inference chip that's a few years away.
Yeah.
At some point, it starts developing a general knowledge of how to do things. But the way you train those things is not small numbers of bots, whether it's on wheels or feet, but large numbers of bots generating large amounts of data. This is my, like, look, I'm not an expert. You know more about software than I do. But as I understand how AI training works, more data, more compute, learn faster. It's not limited number of objects. This is what we've learned from FSD is initially they tried, hey, let's try to train it, let's try to do this, and And what they learned was give it a lot of data, give it the most general AI model possible, see how things go, see where it fails, train it, figure out where it's not working, and train it on how it should be done correctly by people like Chuck Cook's driving. You know, Uber 5-star drivers, how do they handle that situation? So you expose it to the real world, you let it see everything, you let it make decisions based on more input that you can give it.
It doesn't see everything. It only sees what is curated and selected. So you have to be a little bit, I mean, some of the stuff is very generalized but in general, you want to, so right now they're curating tapes. They're curating only the best drivers rather than the worst.
Right.
So I think, what you're saying is right. You think that having 10,000 bots is manageable? I doubt it. I think having 500 bots doing tasks is where I would 550 bots doing tasks is where I would begin.
So
And
let me turn to a
really
different
speaking,
point.
you can certainly get to 500 and you can certainly get to 5,000, but it's going to take a while.
So let me get to a key point here. Once you start manufacturing them in some volume, your cost of making another bot goes down. So if they build a small manufacturing line to make bots, maybe they can get to the point where they're making bots for $20,000 a piece.
What does it matter?
Well, I'm
If you
getting
make it 500 or 1,000 bots, what does it matter how much it costs you? When you decide to manufacture 1 million bots, it matters. But when you make the first 500, look, they have to learn how to manufacture these things. They have to get the lines perfect. It's going to take a while. Before they commit to the line, they're going to want to have some really strong software confidence in the software.
Well, so the point I'm getting at is if you make 10,000 bots and they cost $20,000 a piece, you've spent $200 million building those bots. And that's a small amount of money for Tesla to spend.
Nothing. Yeah.
To generate a fleet of bots that are generating a substantial amount of data that enables more training. And the question is, how much, like, I think there's one question I have is the generation of bot they just showed us the one that they want to start manufacturing, or do they want to go at least one generation in the hardware? Or because they want to learn how to manufacture bot, does it make sense to build a pilot line with the bot that they have, learn where the challenges are in manufacturing that, and then say, okay, now, because one of the things that Tesla does is it integrates how do we manufacture this with what are we manufacturing? There's a dual problem. What's the ideal bot? What's the best way to manufacture it? And there's a lot of back and forth between the manufacturing engineers and the
right. Neither you nor I know whether this generation of bot represents what they want to manufacture. I think they're still a ways away. I think there are probably an iteration or two to go. I think they're getting very close to it, and I think they could probably start manufacturing motors, electric motors, and they may be a generation away from that, and they may be working on production lines. I mean, the beauty is that right now the factory that makes engines, that makes motors, could probably be used and extended to make the bot motors, and transducers and the physical devices. So I don't think the manufacturing and the stepping up of the manufacturing is going to be much of a challenge for them. I think they probably find themselves very confident about that. I think the real issue is, once they get closer to the version that they want to get to, then actually proving out the functional capability from a software hardware interface perspective, and they're testing that right now all the time. That's what that egg thing is all about. That's what the dance thing is all about.
I don't think we're going to agree on this. So let's turn to what you
No,
brought up. Let's turn to what you brought up early on with Dojo.
yeah,
Oh, sorry. Actually, before we get to that, I painted a picture in the future, uh, like 2035, so 12 years from now, where
yeah.
Tesla's manufacturing 100 million bots, and they're
Oh, I
selling.
don't doubt it. I don't doubt it one bit.
And I think the margins end up being very high
Unbelievable.
because the value add, once you have a bot that is able to do meaningful tasks. Let me, I, I want to hear your thoughts on my what I think is a fairly simple explanation of the value. You run a business, call it a fast food restaurant. I worked in a Burger King and a Dairy Queen when I was a kid, so that's one that like sits in my head. And let's suppose you have a fast food restaurant that has 10 employees on a shift and it runs 2 shifts a day. So if the bot can't do a complete job that one human does, but it can do enough work that the employer can now run with a shift of 9 employees instead of 10. And the bot is taking the trash out, and the bot is mopping the floor, and the bot is doing all it's doing is some simple tasks, but not something that one person would do. Like it can't operate the cash register, it can't deal with the consumer, but it can pick stuff up and throw it out. Just
Yeah,
hear me.
but
Sorry, go ahead.
the bots right now operating the cash register. When
Okay.
you go to a fast food restaurant, you don't talk to a cash register anymore, to a cashier.
At some level, at some points, employees in the fast food restaurant talk to customers. But I agree that there's ones that have
Not
kiosks
many,
where you order.
not many.
So,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying some fantasy workplace with 10 workers and you're able to reduce to 9 workers on a shift. And if the average worker costs the employer $20 an hour, right? Which could be a combination of wages and workers' comp insurance and social security withholding or whatever.
Right.
You add all that, the tax on the employer side. And if the average worker works 2,000 hours a year, so 2 shifts is working 4,000 hours a year, and you're saving the employer $20 an hour on 4,000 hours, you're saving the employer $80,000 a year. If the bot does that for 10 years, it's saved the employer $800,000. A selling price of $100,000 is a steal for that employer. And if their cost of manufacturing the bot is $10,000, it's a 90% gross margin. So just for that part of the story, what have I got wrong?
Did you do law or economics?
Both.
Okay, if you did economics, your argument would say that a tractor would sell for several $1 million.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Well, does a tractor generate that much value compared to the alternative?
Whoa. Your argument about the tractor, your argument about the fast food restaurant would apply 10 times over to the tractor. Look, innovation is like this. That in the early years, there's massive value add, and then the value add dwindles as competition occurs, as other solutions come in. There's no doubt that a general purpose bot that can be trained to general purpose usage of being able to be trained by the end user to do the end user's tasks would be of enormous value, almost incalculable value. But it's not going to be Tesla's fiefdom. Tesla's going to have to compete with other solutions and other ideas and evolving over time. That isn't to say they sell tractors for zero. That isn't to say that tractors didn't have their moment when they were very valuable. But over time, natural economic law applies. So yes, there is going to be an enormous value add to the bot. That value is going to be captured, I think, by Tesla compared to its competitors or in competition with competitors, just as they've been able to capture the vast majority of the EV profits to date. But over time, that percentage of the EV of the profit is going to be eaten away by the natural process of competition. They're not going to be alone.
Okay, so
they're not going to be unique.
I'm going to disagree with you on that, and I'll explain why. 8 years ago, in 2 days, we have the 8th anniversary of the first landing of an orbital rocket booster, the Orbcomm 2 mission. No one else has even tried to put a payload into orbit and bring the booster back and land it, with the possible
That's
exception of
true.
rocket
That's
land.
absolutely true, and it's remarkable, and I don't doubt it. But next year we are going to see some competition emerge. Believe it or not, Blue Horizon are going to launch.
Blue Origin, yes.
A Blue Origin, sorry, are going to launch, and there's no doubt Tesla's going to have its moment, just as it's having with SpaceX, just as Elon's having with SpaceX. And there's no doubt he's got a 5 to 10 year runway. I don't doubt it, although there are a few robotics companies that have claims. I discount them to a large degree. I think Elon's going to have his robotic moment, just as he's had his EV moment, just as he's had his SpaceX moment. But over time, it's going to go away, or the government's going to take it away from him.
That one I'll buy.
Yeah.
Did you read From Zero to One from Peter Thiel?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So I don't ordinarily read a lot of books. That's one that was recommended to me multiple times.
Yeah.
I read it.
Excellent
I
book.
think the distinction, I think Elon applies. Of course, it's Elon's, not necessarily Peter's thinking. I think Elon came up with some of this on his own, but the key distinction here is, and this is why I say Tesla needs to manufacture bots in volume soon and develop the training. The way that you succeed in AI is generating lots of data with lots of hardware. And Tesla has multiple advantages. They're ahead on real world AI. They're ahead on the manufacturing side of bot. If you can manufacture bots at scale, and you're ahead of the game. So you're correct that there's a really good chance that Blue Origin is going to have an orbital launch and try to land a booster next year. Whether they succeed in landing a booster next year is a whole nother question, but I think
suspect they will. I suspect they will. I give them that.
Wait, you think they're going to succeed on their first try landing a booster on a moving ship in the ocean?
It's possible. I don't say they will. It's possible.
And when will their second try be? If they don't succeed on the first try,
that may take another year or so. But I mean, your point is extremely well made. I have absolute confidence that this bot is going to be dominant. Absolute confidence. But it's going to be, I think the competition is going to come early, and it's going to be interesting, and it's going to be opportunistic. But it's very difficult to compete with Tesla now, because when you look at what he's done in terms of the design, the bot's going to cost him half, maybe a quarter of what it's going to cost a competitor. So clearly he's got an enormous advantage. So I don't doubt at all that he's, just as he's the Ford of EVs, and the Ford of rockets, he's going to be the Ford of bots. Now, does he allow a General Motors, or does he squash a General Motors? That's an interesting question. Why did Ford not dominate the auto industry forever? Made a very significant strategic error.
I think that the reason that the strategic error that others make that Elon is not making is, once you get the lead, you accelerate. You continue to build on your lead. And the longer it takes everyone else to start catching up, this is one of the things that's just...
I would argue that he's made a strategic error.
Sorry?
I would argue that Elon has made a strategic error.
Which one?
I believe that he has not built the Gen X, the next gen vehicle early enough.
Okay. I think we're going to see what happens with that. But
we will. But had that vehicle been launched early in 2024, it would have made a very, very significant impact.
Next year.
Yeah, early January of next year. If it had been announced if it had been announced in parallel with the Cybertruck, and if it were launched parallel with the Cybertruck, the stock would have been double what its current level is.
Well, I don't think Elon's worried about short-term stock price.
No, I'm not arguing about stock price. I'm just saying I think it was a strategic error not to build next gen a year to 2 years earlier. And I understand we had a pandemic and we had supply chain problems. They were grappling with it. I get that.
Just to be clear, in September of 2020, when they had Battery Day and they revealed that they were working on this vaguely, Elon said in about 3 years we'll deliver, which would have been September of 2023.
Look, I remember very well in 2017 or 2018, I can't for the life of me get the name of the interviewer, but I remember an interview of Elon early. I think there was either it was before, it was in the range of production hell in the day around that day, 2017. And they were asking him, about competition and so on. He said, look, these auto companies, they can do more than one at a time. They can do 5 and 6 models at a time. We can only do one at a time. And you could see that winsome look on his face. I think that was, I think if you go back and look at it, the Model X, they made a lot of mistakes. And I think that Elon's stubbornness about full self-driving cost us a year or two. But you know what? I mean, given his achievements, that's kind of, if that's the worst mistake he's made, it's not the end of the world.
All right, so I want to turn to the thing you brought up at the beginning about Project Dojo. And I had suggested that Dojo could actually be more valuable than NVIDIA. Let me just really quickly say why it could be more valuable. Assuming, huge assumption, that Dojo as a hardware system becomes roughly comparable to NVIDIA in terms of effectiveness, cost effectiveness, whatever.
It's not there yet.
Oh, no, it's absolutely not there yet. I'm suggesting that down the road it could be. And I'm not suggesting that Tesla then becomes a competitor to NVIDIA selling chips or hardware to customers, but rather if they offer Dojo as a service, they are offering a layer on top of the hardware that is an increased value add over the value that's added by NVIDIA.
Yeah.
And in that way, if they're able to manufacture Dojo at scale and offer training at AI training as a service at scale, they're adding, even though I love NVIDIA, I think NVIDIA is doing great things. If the Dojo V2 chip or the Dojo V3 hardware system, whatever it is, gets to the point where it is on a roughly even level with NVIDIA, plus they have a focus of reducing, of improving compute per kilowatt hour, right? If they're able to produce more compute for less energy, that may end up being a very valuable thing.
So there's a phalanx of ifs.
Yes.
That you've got there. And so yeah, I mean, if all those ifs come to pass, great. But they've got a long way to go. I mean, right now they're significantly behind the H200 in performance. They tell us they're working on their next iteration. I mean, the real issue is how they feel about the architecture and whether the architecture is the right direction. We have to believe that, they're pretty good at what they do. I mean, NVIDIA are really, really good at what they do. I mean, they're really good. But NVIDIA charge a hell of a lot of money for their stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, they are very, very expensive, and that's how they earn the big bucks. So yeah, I think there are opportunities. There are a lot of hardware plays right now going after this, and you have to believe there will be more.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's a really good chance that Tesla will come out to be in a very good place, but it's going to, it's very cloudy. The future is very cloudy. It's very unclear who the winners will be and what the shape the winners will take and how it will emerge.
I just wanted to
Yeah.
ask you, there was this moment where somebody revealed that XAI had, I think it was an 8,000 H100 GPU cluster. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, everybody says it's really hard to get NVIDIA chips. And does Elon just call Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, and say, hey, I need 8,000 H100s? Or he says I need 10,000, and Jensen says I
You're
can get
tapping,
8?
you're tapping into exactly what I was thinking. I was also a little bit, it didn't compute for me how that happened, where that happened. You don't know, and it's very hard to tell. It's a private company. It's going to be private for a while.
Yeah.
Uh, I I think that our biggest risk is not that Tesla's stock won't go through the roof. Our biggest risk is Tesla will go private. I'm telling you, that's the thing that keeps me up at night.
So let's talk about that for a second, because I have never heard that. I haven't heard that in a long time. How could a company that's worth nearly $1 trillion go private? And if it was to go private, the price that it would have to be paid in order to take it private would make it $1 trillion company, or more than $1 trillion company, probably be a trillion.
Probably,
So
probably.
I don't understand the mechanism to take a company that large private. Would it be like a bunch of wealthy investors like the Saudis, and
Yeah, it doesn't have to take the
what
Saudis, and I doubt whether Elon would put himself in that position again, ever.
yeah.
I think there's enough money in the valley to do it. He would so like to get out of the public world. He would so love to get out of the public world.
Does that also hinder the employees are getting stock options that are clearly valued?
Well, the guys in SpaceX are getting stock options. They're doing very well out of it. Very, very well out of it.
Well, they're doing well out of it, but I don't think their valuation has risen as fast as Tesla's did in 2020. And I think if you and I are looking at it saying, hey, I think I'm going to get a 5x or 10x out of this stock in the next 5 years. And of course, I'm more optimistic than that. But if you're an employee looking at that, if it's privately held, I don't know if the value unlock is as clear. And the liquidity for the employee of being able to cash out their
Yeah.
stock, their options, becomes more challenging, and that may make recruiting harder.
All of that's true. All of that's true. They're not having any problems recruiting in SpaceX, but of course they're recruiting many, many times less numbers. I mean, the numbers at SpaceX are like a tenth.
I want to come
of
back to one other topic. Thinking back about bot, thinking about FSD, also about Starlink. How much time do you have?
5 more minutes.
Okay, so thinking about
This
Starlink.
is I just want to tell you the sacrifice I'm making. This is my 55th wedding
Got it.
anniversary night.
I got it. I got it.
Okay.
Um,
Maybe I have to do already. Yeah.
so I see something called first mover advantage.
Yeah.
That if Tesla develops a robotaxi network before anybody else, and they continue to innovate, and they continue to make it better, and they continue to drive down costs, and now you're a second company that says, I think I can build a robotaxi network. How much money do I have to invest to make that happen? And what will the pricing situation be once I do? They will have lower costs than I have. They will be able to undercut me on price. They will have higher quality. Same thing with Starlink. Starlink has built out, I think it's 4,500 satellite network. They're going for 10,000. They're ultimately going maybe for 40,000 satellites. For some reason, uh, Project Kuiper is trying to launch a few satellites into space. It's like, if you're trying to compete directly with Starlink, they have a lower cost structure for launching their network, for operating their network. They're delivering a higher quality service than you're going to be able to offer. How much money are you, as a second mover, does it make sense to invest all that money to become number two and at a competitive disadvantage? Is there a first mover advantage that, if you continue to innovate, deters people from competing with you?
Well, the universe will stop him eventually. I mean, how big, will the universe allow Elon's companies to become? you know, I mean, all of what you say could be true and has a fairly good chance of being true. And then what does the universe do? You know, it, I really fear for him. I fear for our future with him. You know, because the level of malevolence towards him is just extraordinary.
Yeah.
For the most, you know, for the silliest of reasons, you know, but it's the age we live in. So, you know, I really am concerned about him. And, you know, he undergoes some enormous stresses in his own personal life. I know you haven't read the book very thoroughly, but the book, you know,
The biography?
biography, yeah.
I read it cover to cover in 2
Oh,
days.
oh, you did. I thought you said. I thought I heard you say you hadn't
The first
read it.
half of the book was stuff we already knew.
Yeah, most of this. Yeah, I think it's the personal stuff. You know, I just hope that that the world is kind to him because he's been amazing for the world.
Maybe he's the Draymond Green of the business world. Maybe I should have more sympathy for Draymond Green in light of that. Okay, so I want to thank you so much for giving me this time. I want to let you get to the important activities,
Yeah.
your 55th anniversary. But by the way, you've been married more than twice as long as the marriage that that ended recently for me. So I want to congratulate you on that. You're a better man than I, and I'm guessing you chose well. I thought I chose well. I'm guessing you chose well.
Well, I chose extremely well. My wife is amazing. Yeah, she's an amazing person.
Okay.
Anyway,
Thank you
best
so much.
enjoy Thailand. We'll come and visit you one of these days, somewhere in your eastern
Awesome.
life.
Okay.
Take care, Warren.
Thank you, Larry.